Today, we'll be trying the meat ratatouille. Start with a layer of tomato sauce. Alternate sausage, pepperoni, and salami.
Meat bully them been making down the UFC. Action-packed bangers like a sizzling feast. Steak, beef, skews of meat, it's a carnivorous beat. Boyville versus Moreno in the octagon they compete. Yeah, versus T-City, fist fly can't be beat. Meat boy, MMA, bringing the heat. Slicing through opponents like a shark cleat. UFC, Mexico's a sizzling showdown. Meat boy, MMA, we run the town.
UFC Mexico City, Meat Boy, and we have a lot of bangers in store. But before we even jump into this week's bangers, UFC 298 last week, and shout out to our latest subs, Ilya Ganize, Mr. Big W100, the homie Maricel Gorciu, and then obviously shout out to the OG Meatheads always commenting down below, Dane6353, our boy Pure Onagization, aka Diesel Claude Bartman, and Things606. We appreciate you guys grilling, showing with us. And Meat Boy, last week, you and I mean, not to like toot our own horn, but 6-1 was both of us. We went on an absolute tear last week. So those of us who were riding with the Meat Boys ended up with some tennies in the bank. And quick recap, I mean, Deligma took on a different Tafa than we anticipated, but nonetheless, you and I were all over Deligma. And then I want to get your thoughts on the Lemos versus Dern fight, because we both picked Lemos. She got that one done. It earned fight of the night. Any thoughts on that getting fight of the night? Did you think it was deserving?
Yeah, I thought it was fight of the night. I'm very surprised they didn't call the fight first round. Man, Mackenzie Dern is very tough, and man, I actually was like, oh my gosh, I think Mackenzie Dern just stole the fight with that ground control and all that. But apparently, they don't care about that. They cared about all that damage that happened early and often, and it was a mop session. But that was a battle. It was a war. Not surprised that got fight like a good a bonus. But I'm just surprised that Whitaker and Paulo Costa did not get it, because that was a sick fight too.
Yeah, I too was surprised. I thought the reason I asked is because I thought that Whitaker and Eraser clearly should have got fight of the night. I almost think that there's still some, maybe not necessarily bad business behind the scenes, but some tension, so to speak, with the Eraser camp and the Dana Brass camp, because, I mean, how do you not give those guys fight of the night? But nonetheless, before we even get there, I mean, Fluffy versus Kopylov, that was a weird fight, Meat Boy, where Tapology was uber bullish on Kopylov. A lot of people in the comments, I mean, we were seeing Kopylov love everywhere, but you and I stuck to our guns, at least for the video was concerned. We both picked Fluffy. Were you at all surprised with how easily he made that look over Kopylov? And with that being said, how far is Fluffy going to take this run of his?
Yeah, Kopylov, he's a good fighter, but I really do think Fluffy is the real deal, which he kind of just displayed. I mean, that was pretty light work. It would not surprise me if Fluffy is a champion by the end of the year or the end of next year. The kid just looks insane, better and better every fight. He just seems unbeatable like right now. It's like his special ability has been awoken. I don't know. It's super crazy fight, but yeah, he looked absolutely phenomenal last weekend.
Yeah, he's dope, and I mean, he doesn't have the build, so to speak. He doesn't look the part, maybe when compared to other guys, but the dude is as big of a dog as anyone in the division, and I was especially impressed with him opening the main card as a 2-1 favorite and still just capitalizing with the same confidence he always had when he was historically a dog in those last couple fights that we've been cashing in on. So great stuff from Fluffy in that one, a nice second round win for him. And then Merab versus Triple C was the Meatlock. We had to get back on track, Meat Boy. We were flirting with the red, so to speak, but on the degrees of doneness, Merab was an absolute lock for us. He got it done, I think, pretty easily against Triple C. I mean, Triple C did impress me in that first round. He looked good, maybe even won those first 5 minutes, but he kind of gassed afterwards, and it makes sense because Merab just puts on this machine-like pace where guys can withstand it, they can sustain it for a few minutes, but ultimately it's 15 minutes or 25 minutes of hell that they just can't keep going, and Machine Merab can seemingly go for an entire hour, maybe even longer. So what were your thoughts on Merab? He cut a pretty epic promo afterwards. He was on the mic for like 10 minutes, but what were your thoughts on the Meatlock?
Yeah, no, man, Merab, what a machine, man. I mean, he did get clipped a little bit from Triple C, but boy, did he look good. I mean, I would be so scared to be Sugar Sean, to be honest. I think Sugar can get it done, but he is the last. I'd rather fight Umar Nurmagomedov than fight Merab Deval's Chili Billy Billy. That dude is absolutely the CEO of EPO.
Yeah, he seriously is next level when it comes to the cardio, the gas tank, the pressure. I mean, everything he does is just so fast paced and doesn't wane from start to finish. It really is a sight to behold. And Ian Gary versus Jeff Neal, real quick, Meat Boy, what were your thoughts on that one? Some controversy, it seemed like. I thought that did enough to win the unanimous decision. I thought 2-1 personally, but those rounds were awfully close, and there was a lot of online chatter that you were seeing that people were thinking Jeff Neal got robbed. Did you think that was a true robbery, or is it one of those things where the fans have soured so mightily on Ian Gary where any even close fight he's in, everyone's going to be saying he lost the fight? Do you think there's some of that, or did you really think Jeff Neal did enough to win that?
You know, I could see some of that, but man, I just thought Jeff. You know, I thought it was at least 2-1. But
Yeah.
In Jeff's favor, yeah. But I don't know. The judges saw it differently. You know, there was two judges that it was like, what was it, 30-27. Pretty
For Ian,
pretty
yeah.
yeah, for Ian, pretty crazy in my opinion. But yeah, I thought Jeff did a great job keeping that clinch. He had you know, control time in the clinch against the cage. Seemed that he was setting the pace. Ian Gary seemed to be running away most of the fight. I don't know. It was just very interesting. And then, but what was mind blowing to me was Ian Gary's face. I mean, you just look at his face. You look at Jeff Neal. Jeff Neal didn't have one scratch, one swole, nothing. Ian Gary was bloody, busted, all that. So that I thought that was interesting, because I thought it was all about damage. It did show in the stats, which was crazy to me. It showed that Ian Gary outstruck him by a good amount, but like I don't think I saw one punch or kick land from Ian Gary, maybe one. So it was just very surprising, but it was too close of a fight. I think if Jeff Neal put more on him and he seemed like he was pretty content in that clinch. Like he didn't really do much, so I guess they're kind of saying we're not going to give points for just holding him and like maybe throwing a little elbow. He needed to really get some damage from those clinch time, and he didn't really get anything. So that's kind of my guess. And Ian Gary was just getting those points, just those baby taps, you know. So I guess, you know, when you're going off points, no one was really controlling, you know, anything, and no one was dominating. But I just thought Jeff maybe had a little more. It just seemed like he was manhandling him. He was going forward. He was landing the bigger shots. But I don't know. Everyone else, I guess, saw it differently. But I thought Jeff won. But it was still close.
Yeah, it was close for sure. Again, the scorecards were, it was two judges had it 30-27 for Gary, and then the split decision came from a judge who had it 29-28 for Jeff Neal. And I agree with you. I thought that Jeff Neal was kind of pushing the pace. It seemed like he was winning the octagon control battle, and it didn't seem like there was too many damaging strikes coming back his way. But Ian Gary, I guess, was just very aware of the power that Hands of Steel was bringing, so he clearly brought a more defensive-minded game set, or a game plan rather, into the contest, and I guess he just landed enough of those volume strikes, even though they weren't, you know, potentially damaging, but the accumulation, because he did outstrike him when we looked at the numbers at the end, so a tough one to score nonetheless. Whitaker Eraser, though, co-meet event, absolute banger. Eraser throws a gnarly wheel kick with like 5 seconds left in the first round, puts Whitaker on skates, and Eraser in that first round I thought was looking fast. He was looking clean. The dude looked absolutely dialed, but then in true Whitaker fashion, right, he's almost knocked out in the first round and then comes back and wins the next 10. What were your thoughts on Whitaker's return to the win column, and what's next for Eraser?
Yeah, you know, I thought both the guys looked really good, and that spinning heel kick was absolutely nasty. Like, how did that not get, like, you know, the attack of the night? Let alone, it should have gotten a bonus just for that attack. That was so cool, so crazy. And yeah, I thought Whitaker was done. Saved by the bell again, though. But no, that was a great fight. Costa looked real sharp, honestly, from beginning to end. It's just Whitaker, he really is the second best, you know. Maybe the first best now, we'll see. But he's so good. He always shows up. Yeah, very mind blown on that outcome. I thought maybe Costa would kind of pull through because he was looking so good in that first round, but Whitaker made the right adjustments, came back second, third.
Yeah, just a great fight, an absolute war from both of them. And we had Whitaker. We both had him by decision that one. So we cleaned house on these first six, Meat Boy. It was just the meat event where our perfect night expired. OGM Volkanovski, the last part of 298, got slept in the second round by Ilia Topuria. And this was a fight that you and I both were well aware of how good Ilia Topuria was, but I think we both just thought that Volkanovski was still that much better. And Ilia Topuria, I mean, I won't speak for you, Meat Boy, but he definitely shut me up. I picked Volkanovski. I thought he was going to not necessarily make it look easy, but I thought he would be dominant in the contest, and he got absolutely slept in the second round. I thought he looked good in the first round. I think he even won round one. But once Topuria gets you behind that outside line and pins you up against the cage, I mean, we've seen countless guys in the UFC getting slept in the same fashion, and it was surprising for me to see Volkanovski just get absolutely crumbled like that. I mean, he was out cold too. It was just like a one-hitter quitter, absolute sleep town hammer from Topuria. So amazing stuff from Ilya. Got to give him his props. What were your thoughts on Ilya's performance?
Yeah, Ilya looked absolutely phenomenal. Um, Man, that was just such a good fight. I can't believe on how scary that guy is. I mean, like you said, it was literally a one snuff punch. I mean, he threw, I think, 4 punches, but only one connected. He missed every punch, even on the way down. That's how out cold and how much power that guy has. That's just so scary and so crazy. And it just seems like from the beginning, like you said, Volk was kind of dominating, but yet it was still close. But you could tell Taporia just threw those kicks with a little more, velocity. I mean, he kicked Volk one time, and Volk's calf like swelled like a balloon, and he spun around. It's like, geez, like Volk's hitting those tap kicks. Taporia is trying to snap your leg in half. It just showed the power. Volk did have the speed, but Taporia was right there. He had a little more strength than speed, and Volk has a lot less strength and a lot more speed, and it just showed that strength just really helped out Taporia to get that finish. I really hope they run it back. I'm so curious on like what that rematch would look like, because it did seem like if Volk can keep this up and not get touched, that he probably will get a nice, juicy, dominant decision with lots of points. But yeah, that was just such a crazy fight.
Yeah, it was insane. I hope they run it back too, especially in Spain. I think that would be pretty sweet if they're able to line something up and really pack a house and allow Topuria that first opportunity to defend in Spain. And Volk will come in ready. He'll definitely be confident and willing to take on Topuria in any setting, I would imagine. So if OGM can go in there and get it done in Spain, that to me would just be an amazing return for Volkanovski for sure. But nonetheless, me boy, 298's in the books. Mexico City's this weekend. You ready to break this down?
Yeah, no, this is a sweet fight, sweet card. Let's break it down.
Yeah, transition us into that into the Meatlock, Meat Boy. We're going heavy on this one, boys. There seemingly is no other option. Raul Rosas Jr., aka El Nino Problemo, is 8-1, taking on Ricky Tercios, who is 11-3, 2-1 in the UFC. And to put it as kindly as possible, we simply think that Ricky Tercios is not winning many UFC fights, and especially in this one in a main event slot on a Mexico City card against Mexico's next hypest prospect, Raul Rosas Jr. This just seems like one of those easy free locks for El Nino Problemo to get done. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we believe Rosas Jr. is this next absolute killer future champ. But as far as being better than Ricky Tercios, this has to be an absolute lock. So we're encouraged by the fact that El Nino Problemo just came off that easy first round finish over Terrence Mitchell. Easy light work. He got it done in less than 60 seconds, and it was a good rebound because if you remember, he lost that unanimous decision to C-Rod, a fight that you and I were all over. We were singing Christian Rodriguez's praises before that contest and essentially arguing that was too much too soon, and that materialized. So when he got that step down in competition against the Alaskan bullworm Terrence Mitchell, it was good to see him get that one done. But nonetheless, Tercios, got to give it to him, 2-1 in the UFC. Pretty sweet, but split decision win over Brady Heastan, a fight that most thought he'd lost, and then he has another split decision over Kevin Natividad, who was essentially 0-15 in the UFC. So his loss was to Ayman Zahabi, another 500 UFC fighter. Ricky Tercios is a bad UFC fighter. Rosas Jr. might also be bad, but he's still better than Ricky. So what are your thoughts on this Meatlock? How does El Nino Problemo get this one done? And is it going to be early and often in Mexico City?
I think it will be early and often. Um, like you said, Ricky's pretty bad. The dude's a savage. The dude is out of this world. He's absolutely unhinged. I'm excited to see, the build up to the fight because he says some of the funniest stuff I've ever seen. But like you said, he's just not that good. I'm very surprised he won the Ultimate Fighter. That was just a pure win on, grit, endurance, and survivability. But we already know El Nino Problemo, he's got infinite cardio, so he's going to absolutely smash this kid. It's going to be a sad sight to see. Nothing but another Meatlock.
Yeah, nothing but another Meatlock, a sad sight for Tercios for sure. And if we're really just sort of inspecting, like, okay, how are either fighter going to get this one done? Ricky Tercios has zero power, right? He's not a knockout threat, so you'd be very surprised to see him go out and somehow knock out Rosas Jr. And we know that Rosas Jr. is going to have the advantage in both the grappling and the jiu-jitsu, right? He's going to be a better wrestler and he's going to have better jiu-jitsu, so in the grappling all around. So there seemingly is no pathway for Tercios to get this one done. If there are any moments where somehow Tercios is landing those slow motion 360 spin kicks and connecting on El Nino Problemo, then you got to imagine Rosas will have the wherewithal to find and get this fight to the mat. And from there, if he's not picking up a finish, he at least should control him to victory. So if we're going Rosas, and again, this is going to be our 92nd Meatlock Meat Boy, do you think Rosas gets an early finish like he did against Terrence Mitchell, or might this be a little bit longer of a contest?
I think he will actually get it first round finish. The kid's got some crazy strength. The kid's built different, and I think he's going to absolutely ragdoll. Ricky. I think he's just too small of a guy compared to El Nino. I think El Nino is just gonna be the stronger, bigger guy and faster, better cardio. Honestly, better everywhere on the feet. So this is kind of like a layup from the UFC. So we're absolutely hammering this Meatlock.
Yeah, we're hammering it. Topology seems the same way. 85% rolling with Rosas Jr. Majority's copper. They think the sub is imminent. 15% rolling with pretty Ricky Tercios. And last time Ricky did get finished was to Mana Martinez, who is a very poor UFC fighter in his own right. So perhaps Rosas Jr. might actually pick up a sneaky TKO on the ground unless the submission is there for the taking, which it could very well be there as well. But like you said, it's another heavy ham. Marab got us back on track with the Meatlock last week, and sometimes there's just a Meatlock that's too juicy where you got to really throw down some serious beef sizzlers. So we're throwing down a nice 1390 to net 500. Minus 278 odds are El Nino Problemo. And again, our 92nd Meatlock, second in a row, keep this streak alive. I'm going to go Rosas Jr. by finish, and I think he gets it done in the second round. Any last thoughts on the Meatlock?
No, I like that prediction, and yeah, I think he does get a finish. But I'm thinking a little earlier, but it would not surprise me. But yeah, throw in the comments. You thinking that it's a finish or not? But yeah, let's get into the next one.
Yeah, let us know if you think that finish is imminent too, and if you're fading the Meatlock, if you're somehow picking Ricky Tercios. Not sure what you're watching, but nonetheless, yeah, let's keep it rolling, Meat Boy. Eric Silva, 9-2, is taking on Muhammad Naimov, a.k.a. the Hillman, a.k.a. the pride of Tajikistan, the Tajikistan Meat Boy, who, don't look now, but he's on a solid 4-fight win streak, and he's 2-0 in the UFC, and the 2 wins he's picked up, both as dogs. Jamie Malarkey was the first one. That was one that you and I missed. We didn't think that even though Naimov was filling these stadiums and all the Tajikistan Meat Boys were coming out in support, we didn't think that he'd get that done over Jamie Malarkey. But nonetheless, he slept him in the second round. Beautiful thing to see. And then most recently took out Nathaniel Wood, a.k.a. the prospect, who is like 32 at this point, so not quite sure how much of a prospect. But nonetheless, Naimov got the unanimous decision in that one, and that one he really opened a lot of eyes because while Nathaniel Wood isn't quite a future title challenger by any means, this is still a guy with a lot of UFC wins and a really good levels test. So for the Hillman with just 12 professional fights to get that one done, I thought was a testament to how good this guy is. But he's taking on Eric Silva, who I know you were singing his praises during Contender Series. He had that beautiful first round finish over Anvar Voisinarov, but that guy was 3-0, so perhaps a little bit unproven. And then once Eric Silva made his debut, it was against downtown TJ Brown, and he got absolutely slept by a triangle choke in the third round. So coming in off his first loss in the UFC, taking on Naimov the Hillman, who's absolutely peaking. Naimov's a decent favorite though in this one, so minus 305 if you're going with the Hillman. Plus 245 is Eric Silva. You gonna take your boy Silva in this one, or is it too much?
Honestly, I don't like seeing minus 305, but I also don't like seeing Eric Silva in the UFC. He had a phenomenal Contender Series fight, and then, as you said, he got absolutely mopped, and he might be on the, the Ricky side of abilities in this, profession. I think this is going to be a sad sight to see. I think, Muhammad is going to absolutely ragdoll Silva. I think Silva cuts too much weight, depleted, gasses out, and probably gets snuffed. So yeah, that's gonna be a sad sight to see, but it makes sense. He's minus 305, so obviously, he's gonna win.
Yeah, being on the Ricky side of skills these days in the UFC just isn't great, especially in 2024, whether it's Ricky Tercios, Ricky Glenn getting slept, or I don't even want to say it, but even Ricky Simone kind of meat boy. It's been bad luck for the Rickies, and I agree with you that I think Eric Silva, aka the King, is pretty much named Ricky Silva in this one, and Tapology's seeing it the same way. 97% is rolling with the Hillman. It's basically all Brown for the KO. Only 3% is rolling with Ricky Silva. Do you think Naimov gets the KO finish in this one?
Yeah, I think he does, man. All that weight that Silva's cutting, I just think he's probably gonna get knocked out. Honestly, the longer it goes, the worse it's gonna be. But it wouldn't surprise me if it was early and often. But I'm gonna predict a second round KO for Muhammad.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Maybe the over 1.5, you might be getting plus 150 action. Perhaps you clench it up, hope that Ricky Silva survives this one for 7.5, and then maybe the Hillman capitalizes late in the second, or maybe if King Ricky Silva just brings his absolute A game, finds a way to only get slept in the third. That could be interesting stuff for Naimov, nonetheless, the round 3 finish. But with you all the way, Meepo, I think the Hillman gets this one done. Any last thoughts on this one? That should be simple beef, or should we just head on over to your boy Claudio Puelles?
Yeah, let's go over to Claudio. This will be a fun one.
Yeah, this one's interesting. Claudio Puelles is 12-3. Peruvian meat boy taking on Fares ZM, aka the French Fillet, who at 14-4 has won 2 in a row. 2 nice unanimous decisions, right? Most recently against Jai Herbert, picked up the unanimous decision in July of last year, and then late in 2022, he took out Michael Figlack, aka Figlock, who turned out to not be a Figlock because he got absolutely smoked by Fares. But in the fight before that, this is what I really want to focus on. Terrence McKinney absolutely just slept Fares ZM. Easy light work with a rear naked choke in essentially the first 2 minutes. It's his only loss in his last 5 contests, and if we take on Claudio Puelles, what is Claudio Puelles good at? Submissions, and we've seen Fares ZM succumb to those when he does lose fights. So Claudio Puelles did kind of get exposed, right? He fought Dan Hooker in November of 2022, which was crazy that was already about 16 months ago. But nonetheless, it really exposed Puelles as the one-dimensional fighter he was. But when he was picking up wins, Clay Guida, easy submission finish. Chris Gritzmacher, easy submission finish. Jordan Levitt, he won by unanimous. He was really implementing his game plan on guys, and they were allowing him to play that game, whereas Dan Hooker was pretty unfazed and almost seemed like Dan Hooker was embarrassed that the UFC gave him this guy, because Dan Hooker really made it look pretty easy by getting that second round finish. So in this one against Fares ZM, are you expecting a Dan Hooker-like performance where Fares ZM comes in as a minus 205 favorite and absolutely smokes Claudio, or similar to the deficiencies we've seen historically, is Fares going to get submitted by Claudio Puelles?
Yeah, this is a very fun fight, and I'm a big Claudia fan. I didn't like that last performance. I was very bullish on him, and then he looked like an absolute sissy chump versus Dan Hooker. But he's taken a lot of time off, so I think he's a new and improved Claudio. I really hope he gets it done, and I like those juicy odds, man. Those are just so juicy, and so I got to go with Claudio on this. I think he's going to pull off the upset, but it wouldn't surprise me if he does lose, because I mean, he's not the best stand-up striker, right? So if the smile killer puts a big smile on Claudia, it's probably not going to be a good night for Claudia, because Claudia looks absolutely horrified when he's stand fighting. He needs to go to the ground, and Ferris might have the takedown defense to stuff him, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I think the takedown defense will be crucial, right? Can Claudio get this fight to the ground? And if he can't, how doomed is he going to be against the French fillet Ferres, the smile killer? But Tapology's pretty bullish on ZM. They think that all those hours he's been putting in at Killcliff FC with those killers over there will be enough to have him prepared against the Prince of Peru. But 36% is rolling with Claudio, and it's basically all copper for that sub. So I know you're picking Claudio. Do you think that he does get that submission, or is there any other pathway? Is there any chance Claudio can win decision? I mean, I struggle to find a world where he wins by KO, but do you think it's submission or bust for Poyas, or does he have that decision pathway potentially too?
I'm really hoping with these, the time off that he's leveled up and he can compete on the feet. He can get a decision. But if we're going it based off what we know of him from a year plus ago, he probably can only win by submission. If he goes to decision, it's not going to be probably a good night for him. But also, it seems that he quits. So if he does quit from getting beat up too much on the feet, he could lose TKO. But I'm basically banking off these odds are juicy, and I can only imagine he's been just refining and becoming more of a man and taking a punch like a man and not crumbling on the first sight of defeat.
Yeah, it's a good point. It all depends on what he's been doing this past year and a half for sure. And if he has refined the skill set on the feet, then maybe he can get this one done. But I got to wait to see it, Meat Boy, because that last version I saw against Dan Hooker gives me zero confidence to pick him, even against a guy like Ferres ZM, who we were talking earlier. He's kind of up and down, right? Like when Ferres looks great, he looks great. But sometimes he comes in there. I mean, that fight against Don Madge when he lost unanimous, didn't seem like he wanted to even be there. And granted, that was 4 years ago, right? So it's like, how much stock do you put into it? But even against McKinney, when he got absolutely slept, and how good is Terrence McKinney, you just don't quite know what you're getting with the Smile Killer. But I'm going to pick him in this one. I think he's going to find a way to probably get a decision, because I could see this one just being a sleeper of a snooze fest. Maybe some grappling, maybe some surviving for both guys, but ultimately zero finishing ability from either. So I'm going to go with the French Fillet. I like him by decision. Any last thoughts on this one?
No, French Fillet would not surprise me. This is an interesting fight, but I'm hoping that Claudio's going to have the sneaky upset.
Yeah, we'll see if it's a sneaky upset there, and if there's a sneaky upset in this next one, Meat Boy. Manuel Shorty Torres is a slight favorite, 14-2, taking on Chris Duncan. Not Christian Leroy Duncan, who is truly awful, but Chris Duncan, who has actually been really impressing me lately. I mean, this dude's on a nice 4-fight win streak. Most recently, he just absolutely smoked Yanal Ash Moz, a.k.a. Easy Light Work, over Ash Moz, and then he picked up that win over Omar Morales before that, beat Charlie Campbell in Contender Series. It's been pretty good for Chris Duncan, who to me kind of looks like a tatted up Grant Dawson and almost fights like him too, just that sort of junkyard dog, absolute scrapper. And he's taking on Manuel Torres, who is also riding a pretty sweet win streak. He's 2-0 in the UFC, absolutely slept Nicholas Mota, absolutely slept Frank Camacho, and while both those guys are near the bottom of the rankings, it only took him about 5 minutes combined to take out both of those guys, and he did the same thing on his Contender Series fight against Colton England, who is a bad fighter. But nonetheless, Manuel Torres, the UFC is putting him 4 fights from the top on this one, and they're giving him a tough Chris Duncan opponent who has a nice win streak. So what are your thoughts on this one? Do you think that the Mexican fighter Torres is going to come through as a slight favorite, or is Chris Duncan going to continue his win streak?
Chris Duncan is actually, he has been surprising me because he did not look good on his Contender Series fight, and he threw an absolute meat bomb and got lucky, it seemed like. But yet he keeps repeating that. So I got to go with Chris. I like those odds. He has absolute bombs in those fists. When people get touched by him, they go to sleep. I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, they're going to be similar in size too. Torres is kind of a longer lightweight, but he's 5'10", 73-inch reach. Duncan is pretty long himself, 5'10", 72-inch reach. And we know that the problem, Chris Duncan, is coming in, training at American Top Team, so he's always working with some killers. And he's one of those guys similar to Fluffy Hernandez, who we recapped earlier, who just keeps getting noticeably better and better. But Manuel Torres, you can probably say the same thing about as well. And this guy's even 2 years younger, and I was a little bit surprised to see, even though he's a slight dog, Tapology's bullish, Meat Boy. They have 80% rolling with Torres, and it's basically all Brown for the KO. So, any surprises from Tapology? Are you curious by how bullish they are on Torres, or do you see a pathway where maybe even though you're picking Duncan, you can still see him getting slept?
I mean, I could definitely see him getting slept because he almost got slept a bunch in his fights that he's had. But he's tough. He just keeps digging deep, and then he throws a bigger bomb, and then the other guys just don't wake up.
Yeah, he is on the right end of KOs most recently, but I don't know, Meat Boy. I just scroll back to that fight on the Contender Series that you were talking about, because if you remember, this guy fought twice, right? He almost got finished in his second attempt against Charlie Campbell, ends up getting the win, gets the contract. But a year prior, he fought Vyacheslav Borshislev, aka Slava Claus, and he got absolutely one punch slept Topuria over Volkanovski style, and I actually am going to pick Manuel Torres to do that same thing to Chris Duncan. I don't know. Something tells me that this Mexican kid is going to come out, be juiced up by this hometown crowd, and he's going to find a way to. I think he's even going to get this one done early, Meat Boy. And I hate to see that because I became a fan of Chris Duncan after that Yanal Ashmaz fight last year in July. But something tells me Shorty Torres is going to get this one done, and I'm going to take him early and often. So, any last thoughts on this one, Meat Boy? I got Torres by early KO.
No, this is a great fight. Yeah, it would not surprise me if Torres does get the KO, but won't also surprise me if Duncan gets the upset, so I'm going to go with that. I like him. He's got bombs in his hand. He's a dog. I'm a dog chaser, so let's get it on that one.
Yeah, he's sick. He's a dog. I know you love chasing dogs, and sometimes, like the mailman, you have too many tendies when you do strike him down. But nonetheless, in this one, Meat Boy, third from the top, another Mexican prospect, Daniel Zellhuber, is 14-1, minus 278, taking on Francisco Prado, who is only 22 years old. But this kid comes into every fight with a lot of confidence, a lot of skills, and even though he's just 1-1 in the UFC, the debut he had against Jamie Malarkey was a very close fight. Some thought that maybe he even did enough to win that debut. And then he just fought Otman Azaitar, boil him, mash him, stick him in a stew. He got absolutely smoked by our boy Prado in that one. First round finish and a first UFC win for him. But he's plus 225 in this one, and he's definitely going to be the smaller fighter against Daniel Zellhuber, who is an absolute monster for this division. So what are your thoughts on this lightweight scrap? What are your thoughts on this being third from the top? I mean, what an opportunity for Zellhuber. Is it going to be too much for him and Prado's coming to sleep him? Or is this the opponent that Zellhuber needs to really awake a lot of people to who this kid is?
Yeah, no, I think Zellhuber is an absolute beast. I think he's a big opponent for Prado. But, man, I like seeing those odds. Prado's a dog. Prado looked great his last fight. He's better than what everyone gives him to. He's strong, he's fast, he's powerful, he's very well rounded. But I do worry that Daniel's gonna have the reach and size. So that does concern me, but I'm a dog chaser. I gotta go with Prado. I think he's gonna move in with that slick boxing of his and get in there and just bully him.
Yeah, he might. I mean, if he's able to close the distance and get on the inside and just really land those heavy shots. Because if we remember, I mean, Prado's got the punches and he's got those kicks too. He's got the really tight stance and he keeps everything nice and whippy. But when he connects on dudes, it turns him around, similar to, I hate to keep referencing it, but how Topuria turned Volkanovski around with just that first kick, right? So perhaps Prado can do something similar on the, like you said, much longer, much rangier Golden Boy Zellhuber. But Zellhuber, I mean, he's just a kid as well. I mean, not quite 21 years old like Prado, but 24 for the Golden Boy. He's 6'1", and he's going to be sporting an 8-inch reach advantage over him. If we look at Tapology, Meat Boy, 81% is rolling Zellhuber, and it's basically all beige for the decision. So they think that's probably going to look similar to the Malarkey versus Prado contest, where Prado's competitive, he eats a lot of shots but refuses to quit. However, Golden Boy ends up with the decision. So what are your thoughts on Tapology? Again, 81% for Zellhuber, 19% for Prado, and it's basically all brown. If you're picking Prado, is it by KO or any chance this guy could pick up a decision against Golden Boy?
Yeah, I think Prado win. I think he could win by decision, but I do like the KO. I think he's going to get in there and throw a tight, nice uppercut, send him to the Shadow Realm, get paid a bag, and KO of the night, and the dog of the night.
Yeah, I mean, if he's able to sleep Zell Huber, he'd be the first one to do it. Trey Ogden was able to pick up that first L for him, but that was a decision, and Zell Huber has yet to be slept. So Prado brings those unique meat bombs. Maybe he is the first, but in this one, Meat Boy, I got to roll with Zell Huber. I don't like him at minus 278, but for Meat Boy, he is the pick. I think the thing that gives me the most concern with Prado is that he just changed camps. He was at Brothers of Life MMA, and now he's training at the Goat Shed under Asim Zaidi, aka Sensi Big Daddy Splash. So I worry about the competition that he's getting, and when he's going up against Zell Huber, who is a guy who is always training in top camps. I mean, right now he's working at Extreme Couture. I think that Zell Huber is going to have enough to get this one done. If not decision, maybe even a late finish for Zell Huber. And similar to the homie Torres, I think this is another Mexican showcase for this kid Daniel, and people will know who he is after this one. So I'm going to go Zell Huber by third round KO. Any last thoughts on this one? Co-meets next.
No, this is an absolute banger, a great fight. This is whoever wins this fight is definitely going to be going on to great things. It's a tough fight for both these guys.
100%. And even if Prado loses, I mean, again, the kid's 21 years old. He has a long UFC future ahead of him. So if he's able to even fast track it with another impressive W, then sign me up for the Prado hype train, because this kid will be a serious threat at just 21 years old. But again, nonetheless, Brian Ortega, T-City is the co-main. He's finally coming back. I mean, we haven't seen T-City since July of 2022 when he originally fought Yair, and he's taking on Yair again, because if we remember that fight in July 22, it ended controversially, right? It ended up with the TKO victory for Yair as a result of T-City's shoulder injury, but some say that Yair was the one who put him in that position that was able to then injure his shoulder. So how much of a fluke was it, or was it intentional by Yair Rodriguez? But nonetheless, enough, I guess, controversy, so to speak, for them to run this one back. And T-City, I mean, again, 15-3-1 is his record. He's 7-3-1 in the UFC, but the guy's lost 3 of his last 4. The only win coming in a unanimous decision victory against the Korean Zombie way back in 2020. So it's crazy, Meat Boy. The last time that this guy won by finish, you and I were there. It was UFC 222 in Vegas when T-City absolutely slept Frankie Edgar with just that sick first-round uppercut, and we saw how good T-City was in that moment, but he's only lost 3 of his last 4 since then, and it's kind of just been going downhill, so to speak, whereas Yair Rodriguez, the painter, is 19-4-1, 10-3-1 in the UFC, and he's won 2 of his last 3, but he did lose his last fight. He finally got his title opportunity. He lost to Volkanovski in the 3rd round by TKO, but the finishes he picked up in those contests against Josh Emmett, again against Ortega, against Korean Zombie even at that last second, were really impressive for me from the painters. So in this one, Meat Boy, Yair Rodriguez is training in Aztec temples on an absolute another level of zen. Brian T-City Ortega, there's some drama with his camp. Did he fire his coaches? Does he have a new team? Give me the rundown on what's the latest for T-City, and is he going to be able to get this one done over Yair?
Yeah, this is such a great fight. It's a very fun fight. It's an exciting fight because there was a lot of unanswered questions. I mean, the fight ended in like 2 seconds because Brian T. City's shoulder is just a little too weak and brittle. So he had to, eat some more Wheaties, drink some chocolate milk to recuperate. But man, ever since T City and his lady friend broke up, it seems that T City's kind of been on the shingles. So hopefully some of the boys or fans can bring him back. Get him back in reality, get him back off the whatever he's on, and hopefully he can bounce back. But I think he's done, man. I just don't see it anymore. I think Yair is an absolute savage. I think he beats everyone but the top 2, Volk. Well, top 3, Max, Volk, and now Taporia. But I think he absolutely destroys them once again. And, hey, a rematch never lies. So we'll see who is the true a better fighter. And I got to go with Yair on this. I just can't imagine that, there's a lot of people I know that have dislocated shoulders and popped them out. They're never the same. They're never good. They're more prone to injury. So it wouldn't even surprise me if the fight ends in another injury. But that'll be crazy. That'll be interesting. Got to take Yair, though.
Yeah, good stuff. Great breakdown. It does definitely seem like T-City, ever since that split with T. Cortez, is kind of shingled. I mean, he's been a little bit more out of the public eye, so there is a potential that he's just been grinded on the low and really is ready to avenge this loss over Yair. But I think there's a greater likelihood that he has been perched atop the shingles for sure. So it's one of those fights, Meat Boy, where I think that Yair even was almost frustrated with how that fight ended. I mean, he ends up with the TKO victory, but it's not in the way that he wanted it. And for Ortega to, I don't want to call it a built-in excuse, but for Ortega to have an easy rationale to go with as to why he lost the fight, I think could be some great motivation for Yair to really put a stamp on this one. And in a co-meet opportunity in front of the Mexico City crowd, I can see Yair just really putting a beating on maybe an unfocused Ortega. But the odds are somewhat pretty close. I thought that we'd be getting an even greater favorite odds for Yair, but he's a nice minus 175. Plus 145 is Brian Ortega. And if you look at Tapology, 87% is bullish on El Pantera. A lot of Brown for the KO, so they think that either the TKO can happen or, to your point, perhaps the re-injured shoulder TKO might happen as well. But 13% going T-City, and it's basically all copper, so they think it's submission or bust for Brian Ortega. Do you buy that? If there is a pathway for Ortega, is it by his patented triangle or sneaky submission game, or is there any other chance Ortega can win a fight beyond a submission?
I mean, Brian Ortega has some nice KOs, but I don't know. Yair is just built different when it comes to striking. I think T-City's going to have to throw a flying triangle or something fancy to get it done. But I don't know. It seems that Yair's really learned a lot from that Frankie Edgar fight. He doesn't go to the mat, and his grappling is actually pretty darn good. So it wouldn't surprise me if, I mean, hey, sprinkle $1 or two. Maybe Brian Ortega gets submitted. Would not surprise me. T-City's shoulder is limp and very weak. I just don't see it.
Yeah, that's sneaky. That could be an interesting play, Meat Boy. Like maybe Yair wants to beat him at his own game, make that much of a statement where he picks up a submission on the ground. Because, I mean, don't be remiss. Yair Rodriguez has some nasty submissions as well. We always talk about all these Mexican fighters with the nasty triangle game and sweet submission arsenal they have from their back, right? Whether it's Arena Aldana or Alexa Grasso or Diego Lopez, right? Like all these dudes are pretty sick at picking up submissions off their back, and Josh Emmett learned that the hard way. So I like where your head's at, Meat Boy. We're probably getting around plus 1,000 for a Yair submission, so definitely something worth inspection for sure. I'm going to go Yair. I think he's going to pick this one up probably by decision, but I'm with you in that I see definitely a world where he can pick up a finish and a statement one at that against T-City. So we're in agreement, Meat Boy. We're both going Yair. Any last thoughts before we talk about this meat event?
No, this is a fun fight. I'm glad they're running this back. It needs to be done, in my opinion, just to let everyone know who the true better fighter mixed martial art is. But yeah, throw in the comments which one you're more excited for. Was it a fluke and the broke arm was a one-timer, or is he a two-pump jump and he's probably breaking his arm again? Let us know in the comments, and yeah, let's get to that meat event.
Let us know for sure. And Meat Boys, if you made it this far, appreciate you guys always growing and chilling with the boys. And slap subscribe, throw us a like, comment, even talk some smack. Just say something down below. We love any engagement. So meat event, it's another rematch. Meat Boy, Brandon Moreno versus Brandon Royval. Another battle of the Brandons. And it's a fight where the last time they fought, Moreno picked up a nice first round TKO finish way back in 2020, but if you remember, that was a pretty close competitive fight, and then honestly kind of similar to the fight we just broke down. Rodriguez and Ortega had kind of a weird injury ending that influenced the eventual TKO, but nonetheless, Moreno, the last time we saw him, he finally lost his belt, right? Got it taken from Pantoja. It was a split decision, so a judge thought Moreno should have kept his belt, but nonetheless, new champ was crowned for Pantoja, and he's 6-2. 6-2 is Moreno in his most recent UFC tenure. If you remember, he had the early tenure, then he got cut, went to the LFA, came back, and has been 6-2 and was a champion in that stretch. But he's 21-7-2 overall, a minus 265 favorite, and he's taking on Royval, who was on a nice 3-fight win streak. He too finally got his opportunity for a belt, but he also took the loss to Pantoja, and that was a fight where Pantoja was pretty dominant across 5 rounds. So what are your thoughts on this one? How do both guys respond after coming into a fight, having just lost to Pantoja, are you taking Moreno to capitalize in front of his hometown crowd, or is Royval, even though he lost last time as a dog, going to remind everyone of what he usually does when the odds makers sleep on him?
Yeah, this is right in front of Moreno's hometown, his home country. I think he's gonna fumble it. I think he's gonna choke under the pressure, under the stress. He's got his friends, family. I've noticed it's a lot easier, it seems to be, for these fighters to fight with random people, not good hometown family and friends. It puts the nerves on them. That's what I think is gonna happen with Moreno. Moreno's been on a downtick trend. I don't know. It just seems Royval had a little hiccup. He didn't expect Pantoja to be that good, I think. And I think Royval was putting on a clinic before also. Similar thing to T-City and Yair, except T-City did nothing. Brandon Royval, he hurt his shoulder. And then it ended the fight. There was real no conclusion. So this is the redemption era. Except for this one, I think the person that lost this time is going to win. I think Raw Dog is going to Raw Dog his way to victory, steal the fans of Mexico, and get back to that gold. He's leveled up, he's ready for war, and I think he's going to get it done. It's going to be a crazy fight.
Yeah, good stuff. And Royval is a great fighter, right? So I commend you for not just abandoning ship after one tough loss to Pantoja, because Royval is, I'm not quite convinced that he's able to take out Moreno, but I am convinced that this dude is one of the top flyweights in the world for sure, and a problem for 95% of this division for sure. But nonetheless, this is a rematch. There were some weird circumstances in the first one, but if we look at Tapology, Meat Boy, it's pretty overwhelming, and we know that Moreno is about a minus 265 favorite, or minus 265 plus 215 is Royval, but Tapology's singing a similar song in that 91% is rolling with the Assassin Baby, only 9% is going with Royval. So talk to me about your thoughts on those Tapology odds, and if Royval gets this one done, is he going to finish him? Is he winning a decision? What's Raw Dog's pathway over Assassin Baby?
I can see Raw Dog getting all three, to be honest. I can see him all three at the same time. Just kidding. I think he's gonna get a decision or a KO, but he's so good. He could get a submission. He could get a TKO injury. Give him the injury that he got from Moreno last time. There's just so many ways he could win. Royval really is a complete fighter, just like Moreno. He's a very complete fighter. Man, this is such a tough one, but yeah, I gotta go with KO second round.
Yeah, and if he's able to do that, you're definitely getting some juicy odds for the Raw Dog second round KO. But in this one, Meat Boy, I think that Moreno's going to find a way to get this one done. I don't know. I want to see what both guys come into the ring looking like coming off that recent loss. But for some reason, something tells me that Moreno's going to have a little bit more of the dog. He has less of the dog in his nickname, but will have more of that Raw Dog in his performance. So I'm going to take Moreno. I'm going to take him by either late finish or by a close decision. But I'm rooting for Raw Dog. I'd love to see a third installment because it's guaranteed fireworks when you put these two guys up against each other. But for me, I don't think they're going to get a third installment. I'm taking Moreno to get this one done, and I think it's going to be a nice night for the Mexicans in front of their hometown. Similar to, not the most recent Canadian fight card, but 2 Canada fight cards ago, it was like 10-0 for the Canadians or something. They absolutely just went on a clean sweep, and I think we're going to see some similar success from these guys on Saturday night. But to your point, Meat Boy, I could be way off because we've referenced it before, but Chael Sonnen says there is no such thing as a hometown advantage when it comes to the UFC because, like you said, all the friends, all the family, all the cousins and uncles and aunts hitting you up for tickets. And when you have a stadium filled with 50 to 100 of your closest people, perhaps that can cause some unique anxieties that you wouldn't really have to deal with when you're chilling inside the Apex. So I'm going to go with Moreno, though, and I think he's going to pick up a decision or a late finish, but we'll see who's nailing that one for sure. So any last thoughts on this one, Meat Boy? Hell of a card. Next week is more of the same. Anything else?
No, this is one heck of a card. Super pumped for it. Throw in the comments who you taking and why. Smash that me subscribe and turn the notification bells. If you guys have not subscribed already, I don't know what you're doing. These are absolute locks and laughs and meat down. So, support the meat boys and smash that meat.